Welcome to Negotiation with Alice, your negotiation podcast. Everything that you do where you need to get on the same page with someone else is a negotiation. So whether you have to negotiate a contract with someone, or you simply need your boss to sign off on that program that you'd like to implement, or you want to figure out how to rebalance the chore structure in your home, or talk about what vacation you want to go on. All of these things are negotiations. So in my podcast, we go over both personal and professional conversations, which all are considered negotiation, and I will give you tips on how to come out ahead. Welcome to the show. Welcome, listeners, to another episode of Negotiation with Alice. Today, I've got Greg Moore here with us. Hi, Greg. How are you?
Excellent, Alice. Thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Sure. So I've got Greg on the show today because Greg works with franchises. And so I'm really excited to talk about that because I think that the negotiations that you have to do around, getting a franchise is very niche. But before we get into that, Greg, I'd love for you to introduce yourself, what it is that you do specifically, with who you're looking for, that sort of thing.
Thank you, Alice. I'm Greg Moore, franchise maven, a Wall Street Journal best-selling author of Real Freedom, Why Franchises Are Worth Considering and How They Can Be Used for Building Wealth. I basically create entrepreneurs through franchising. So people come to me when they're looking to get into a franchise or getting into entrepreneurship, and they want to do it through franchising, and they just don't know where to start. And that's where I come in. My services are free to my people. The franchisors pay us a referral fee. And we work with about probably a little over 300 different franchises in just about any industry you can think of. So people I like working with are people that are great communicators. We're going to be communicating quite a bit back and forth. And then if you decide to get into a franchise, you'll be communicating with your franchisor quite a bit as well. Got to have a little bit of risk tolerance. It is a business, so there's a little bit of risk involved. We try to make that risk as small as possible. On there, you got to be mentored. You got to be a self-starter. Franchisors aren't going to wake you up in the morning and tell you, "Hey, Greg, it's time to get up and get going and start your franchise." You got to get out there and do that part yourself. Everything else, though, you never are wondering, what do I do next? What's next on the list? The franchisors have that systems and their playbooks all set for you, ready to go. You just get up in the morning and follow that system and process.
That's wonderful. So it sounds like it's really a great deal for people who want to become entrepreneurs, but maybe they're like, I don't know really how to start from scratch, so they can go into the franchising business, right?
Absolutely, Alice. Yeah, business in a box, basically.
Wonderful. So I'd love to just talk about the type of negotiations that have to happen, whether it's with you and the client who's looking to buy the franchise, or whether it's between the franchisee and the franchisor, right? So can you talk a little bit about those sorts of negotiations that you are working with?
Yeah, excuse me. The first step in the process, Alice, is when we're negotiating, when we're talking, is figuring out exactly what my people are looking for, what they're looking to get out of that. A lot of the folks are looking for financial freedom and time freedom, but the negotiation there, or the meeting point, is the fact that you're going to be putting in more money to begin with, so you're spending money, and you're going to be putting in more time. So we negotiate, we talk about, is really how much time do you have, or are you comfortable putting into a franchise system? On that, do you have 10 to 15 hours a week for something that you do on the side, or do you not have that amount of time? So we need to find out and negotiate, okay, if you want this type of a franchise, then you're going to be looking at this many hours a week. And if you want this type of franchise, you're going to be looking at this many hours a week. So we kind of have to go back and forth on that and really come to an equal ground where they realize that they're going to be putting in some time and effort into that franchise. And they have to be comfortable then knowing that ahead of time, how much time and money that they're comfortable investing in a franchise as well. So that's a lot of the things that we negotiate, that we go over together. Also, as far as what type of industries that they like, and most people don't know what they like, but they do know what they don't like. So that's where our negotiations comes in. Okay, tell me what you want to stay away from, what you would never do, and then what are you comfortable getting into? What do you see yourself doing? What skill set do you love using on a regular basis? So it doesn't feel like work, doesn't feel like a job. It feels like fun that you're doing on those. And then with the franchisors, there's a little bit of negotiation in there as well. So one of the things that you might want to negotiate is if you decide you want to start with one territory or two or three, you may want to grow beyond that. So what you want to negotiate there is the right of first refusal for an adjacent territory. So each territory, for those folks who don't know what a territory is, for the service industry, the territory is generally going to be a geographic location, and franchisors are going to be looking for, generally speaking, with the service industry, household incomes of $100,000 or more, and they're going to be looking for 100,000 to 300,000 of those households, and that encompasses a territory, whatever geographically that may mean. So what you might want to negotiate is, as you get into that contract, is if you want to expand at a later date and those territories beyond what you want are still available, you want to negotiate in there the right of first refusal. So if somebody else comes in there and starts looking at a territory adjacent to yours, and you were thinking that in the future you may want to pick up that territory, then you want to negotiate that into your contract, that they tell you, hey, Alice, that territory is being looked at. You said you wanted it. If you want it, now's the time to get it. So put that into your contract. Most franchisors will do that to you because they really like putting somebody who's already in the system into another territory rather than bringing in somebody new, especially if you're doing well and you've proven yourself out. There's other things that you can negotiate too. Getting a good franchise attorney helps. They can do a lot of negotiations with you and always, or for you. I always recommend those. But there's getting your personal stuff in there. You can negotiate staying away from anything personal, any personal guarantees on that. You want to take a hard look at that and make sure you're comfortable with those personal guarantees, because there's a business guarantee, and then beyond that, sometimes the franchisors might want a personal guarantee as well. And you want to try as much as possible to separate those two out. So you're just looking at the business, so your personal effects don't ever get into that contractual agreement. So that's just a couple of things that we like to negotiate.
So I love, a couple of things that you mentioned. One is that you're trying to look at the interests, right, of what the franchisee is looking for, what their interests are, how much they want to work, what's their skill set, that sort of thing. So I really love that. And what I really want to also find out is, prior to, like, generally when people go into a negotiation, they have to prepare. And so I talk a lot about the preparation phase and what people need to look at. So I'd love to understand, if someone's thinking, so they haven't quite gotten to meeting you yet, and they're thinking, I wonder if this is what I would like to do. What sort of preparation, research should they be doing before they even approach someone like you?
So one of the best things to do, Alice, are really go out there and read about entrepreneurship and read about franchising itself. Get as many books as you can. You can go out to the International Franchise Association's website, I think it's franchise.org, and get a lot of great information on franchising there. But there are many books about not only about entrepreneurship and about franchising that you can get into, but there's also the factor that every single one of my people usually come up against, which is the fear factor. If they've never done it before, it's something that is unusual, out of the ordinary. So fear pops in there. It becomes real pretty quick. So one good book is called, I think it's Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway on that one. So prepare yourself for the fact that at some point in time, you're going to be hitting a roadblock with those fears. So you need to prepare yourself that, how do I overcome those fears? Is this something I really want to do? And if it is something I really want to do, then I really need to overcome the fear of doing something, trying something different that they've never done before. That's a very good way to prepare yourself, because we go back and forth, me and my clients, all the time. They get to the very end, they're like, well, I'm not so sure. It's like, okay, what are you afraid of? And it's funny, a lot of them are saying, well, I'm afraid of failing. It's like, okay, well, let's look at your past. How many times have you failed in the past? They're like, well, none. It's like, okay, so what makes you think you're going to fail now? So one of one of many fears that pops up. So prepare yourself for that. Prepare yourself for different books on entrepreneurship, how the entrepreneurs, tenacity, sticking with things, what are the challenges they had to overcome along the way. A lot of good books on that, because there will be challenges. It's not all peaches and cream. Franchising is great, but it's not instant wealth. You won't be a millionaire in a year or two. Probably will take some time and effort. So get to know entrepreneurship, and then many different books. My book on franchising, I just walk people right through, how to investigate a franchise, what to look for in that, real world examples of the people that I work with as well. So you get a good feel of my style if you decide that you want to work with me on that. And you get to hear it from some of the people that I worked with as well, some of what we walked through. And there are many other great books on franchising. So read up as much as you can, gather as much information, and realize that at one point in time, yeah, the fear factor is gonna set in there. So make sure you're ready for that.
Now, I know that you said that you ask a lot of questions when you are talking to people.
Mhm.
So, how much of that self discovery should they be thinking about prior to coming to you, right? When you say, what are your skill sets that you're good at, or what do you enjoy doing? So, what are some of the things that they maybe could be thinking about before they even show up to you? Because it could be that they're like, oh, I haven't done an inventory of all the things that I'm good at, right? Or I have to think about these things. So, talk a little bit about how they can even prepare to their answers before coming to talk to you.
Yeah, great question, Alice. On that one, what you want to be thinking about is what type of business that do you really enjoy in the first place? Do you like the service industry where you're going out, or your manager in that case goes out if you do it semi-passive? Do you like going out and talking with people? Are you comfortable going into people's homes and if they want to do some remodeling, are you comfortable going in there and sitting down with them and talking about them, what they want, about what they want to remodel, what they want to do? Are you more comfortable with a brick and mortar where you build it and they will come, generally speaking? Very simple business there. But they're both, and when you're thinking about that, you don't necessarily need to think about how much you can make because you can make good money either way. They're just different types of businesses. So think about, would you rather run something like a shop where you build it out, put in A plus real estate, people drive by, they come in, so you just have to build up a nice team and nice customer service? Is that the kind of thing you enjoy doing, and you don't mind hiring, interviewing people on a regular basis, and doing some inventory or that sort of thing? Keeping in mind that a lot of the things can be outsourced to others, but you think about what makes you happy when you're at your job and you're working. What part of it is the things that you like to do best on there? If you're not a real hard salesperson, then you want to look at a franchise system, or if you haven't had any sales background, then stay away from some of the ones like there's cost reduction type franchises where you go in there and you help businesses reduce their costs. Well, from the client's point of view, it's not broke, so why fix it? You can fix it, you can make it better, but it takes a little bit more convincing, a different type of sales type approach. If you've got that real good hunter personality and you really like going down there and hunting that and building those relationships, that'd be a great one for you because then that would be very exciting for you. A lot of people like that. If you're more like me, more consultative, where people come to you with a problem and you're their super person, you fix that problem for them. They say, I got this problem. It may be that their plumbing is backed up, maybe that their HVAC system is not working, maybe that their kitchen looks like junk and they want it remodeled. It's a problem. They want you to show up on time. They want you to fix it. You like those kind of consultative sales. You sit down, have a cup of coffee, enjoy talking with people. Think about the kind of things that you really enjoy doing on a regular basis. Sometimes when you go into that business at first, you're thinking about maybe doing everything. You can just figure out which ones you don't like doing and outsource it to somebody else as quickly as possible. But whenever you go into the business, the other really major important factor you need to be considering is the fact that when you get into a franchise, and a lot of people come to me and say, I don't want a franchise, I don't want to buy myself a job. Well, if you treat it like a job, it will be a job. So if you go in there thinking that you're going to do everything, that's going to be a job. Think of it as an asset. So your mindset is, I'm not buying a job, I'm buying an asset that I want to build up that will provide me with an income, but I don't necessarily have to be there all the time. So think of it as an asset. Think of it as the fact that you're going to hire people to do just about everything. And what you're going to do, and hopefully this is something that you enjoy, is you're going to hire a manager. The manager is going to do it all. And you're just going to sit down with the manager on a regular basis and maybe, have employee meetings once a month or whatever you want to do with that one. But it's going to be an asset that you're going to build up. So it's like an annuity in the future that you can just continue to bring money, because we as entrepreneurs, we want more time freedom. Treat it as a job, you don't get time freedom. Treat it as an asset, you do. The other reason why we become entrepreneurs is we don't like other people telling us what to do. So go out there, treat it like an asset, not a job. You got it made.
And then you mentioned earlier that, it comes with a bit of risk.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to guess that your risk aversion, like different franchises have different amounts of risk. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so, what is a really good way for someone as they prepare, because it's all
Mhm.
still preparing for the negotiation piece of it, right?
Mhm.
How can someone internally assess their risk? Like, what should they be thinking about? Like, if you say, well, how risk averse are you? And someone might say, I don't know. Like, what should they be thinking about when they're thinking about their own risk averseness?
How old that franchise is, how many franchisees does it have? So if you really want to do a lot of negotiation, really want the leeway to have a lot of negotiation, then you'll be going into a franchise that is newer. So one that's just kind of starting up. Maybe it's got 5 franchisees, 10, 15, 20. An emerging type franchise. Lots more room for negotiation if you want to negotiate your. There's some things generally can't be. Franchise fees, royalties can't always be negotiated. However, with an emerging franchise, there's more of an opportunity to do a lot more negotiation in there with those because they are starting up and you're going to help build that system up on there. That's going to be a little bit more risky, but you're going to have a lot more negotiating power because you're going to help that franchise build themselves up. Not all of them have really got everything all set in the way they're going to do things, as opposed to a franchise who's been around for 5, 10, 15, 20 years or more, has 100 or more franchisees in it. They've got the systems and processes down. So in that case, when you're getting into those big ones, your risk is reduced real small because they've done it so many times. But now your negotiating power is down as well because now they've got so many franchisees in the system. The whole idea behind a franchise is that everybody is on the same playing field. Much easier to manage a franchise system that way. So you reduce your risk a great deal. Getting into 100 or more franchisees in the system, and there are only like 5 or 10% of the franchises of the 4,000 franchises in the U.S. have made it to 100 or more. So you know you're in the top 5 to 10% already. And they've done it in so many different cities and so many different states that your chances of success are going to be that much greater, but your chances of negotiating are going to be a lot smaller.
So let's talk about the negotiation piece, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned that when it's a newer franchise, that there are more opportunities for negotiating. And I
Mm-hmm.
did hear you say that typically the royalties or the fees are non-negotiable. Is that right? Is that what you're saying?
Generally speaking, though, Alice, with an emerging one, you might try some of those negotiations. I don't think that you'd be able to do it with the franchise fee, but with the royalties, which are generally 5 to 10% off the top, there is an opportunity there to do a little bit of negotiating if it's a newer one uh, to reduce those for a while as you're building it up. I
Okay. And
tell everybody, always ask. Go ahead. Sorry.
what are some of the other pieces that people can consider negotiating in those
Territory.
startups?
Yeah, territory size, Alice, is a great one on that, especially with the newer ones, because then you've got more opportunity for territory availability. With the larger ones, they may not have that much territory available in your area because they may have already built out some sections of it. So you might not have that much negotiation, and they might have already mapped it all out, and they say, nope, that's it, end of story. With the newer one, you got a wide open territory, so now there's more room for negotiating a few more zip codes in there as well, or adjusting the boundaries of your territory.
That's really great. That's great information. Anything else that they can consider negotiating?
Um, Advertising fees will be another one to take a look at. Most franchises will want you to put in money for advertising. So advertising fees is another one that you can negotiate on that. They generally want to make certain that that territory is getting well developed, so which is why they want you to spend money on advertising. But that's one thing that you can negotiate. Again, it's a little bit easier with an emerging franchise than with one that's been around for quite some time. But that is advertising fees is another one. So emerging royalties, advertising fees, yeah, you could probably negotiate some of those. Territory size, you could negotiate that as well. But the little ones that are larger, especially when they get up to 100 or more, not so much on those.
Interesting. And then for the advertising fees, who typically is it just the franchisee has to put out money for advertising, or how does that who's
Correct.
paying?
That's the same thing with the royalties. It's usually between 1% and 2% that they want you to be spending on advertising. And one thing to negotiate there is that sometimes they want to use those for national advertising. So you want to see if you can negotiate that for just local advertising and in your local area so that you get more back from the advertising than as opposed to nationally where it's broadcasted all over and everybody gets everybody benefits in the end because you're building up that entire system, but it's going to be more direct if you can do it in your specific area.
Wonderful. And so you mentioned, having to research a lot of things, learning about entrepreneurship, learning about franchises. So in that space of, okay, I'm preparing, right? I'm in the preparation phase. I'm going to prepare to negotiate. I'm going to prepare to go into franchising. From your own experience, how much time should someone be taking to sort of ramp up before they even hit go?
Oh, usually a couple of weeks. Watch some videos out there. There's lots of YouTube things on franchising. But I've got lots of videos out there on my YouTube channel, and I've done a lot of other people's podcasts like yours, Alice. And so listen to them. Listen to what other people have to say about it. Go on to different franchisor sites on there and check out if they have their own franchisees. Uh, Most of the time they will have their own franchisees on there doing a little podcast for them. So listen to what they have to say about what they've gotten involved in and how they feel about their brand. That good couple of weeks, but I'll have to say a lot of my people come to me. They say, it sounds like a great idea. I've never done it before, so let's do it. And when I'm working with my people, it usually takes 2 or 3 months to go through the entire process. So by that time, we've got them a lot of great information on there. But the best people I've worked with have already prepared. They said, hey, I've watched a couple of your videos or I've watched a couple of your podcasts out there and saw those, and read up a little bit on it. So they're a little bit more prepared. They kind of know what to expect from there, and they kind of get a good direction that they want to head into.
Now, this is a little bit of a more or of a financial question, but let's say that someone is thinking like, okay, this is my budget and that franchise is going to cost me all of my budget, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are best practices? Like, should they come in with double the amount that it costs to go in, right? Because there's going to be additional costs.
Mm-hmm.
So is it that they say, okay, I'll have the cost of the franchise, I've got that money plus 10% or 20%, or do they have to, like how much should they be calculating in their minds when they're going into this kind of a business?
Well, Alice, they need to look at the total investment. So the total investment, and the franchisor will have that, and they'll have that in their item number 7 of the franchise disclosure document. Total investment, who you paid what to and when on there. And what you want to do, look at there, see if they have any living expenses as part of the total investment. Some of them will. Some of them will just have the total investment as strictly the investment to get that business up and running, and that's it. If you are going to run that business yourself, then having the total investment on there is adequate. Now, they're going to have a range of the total investment on there. The reason they have the range is because if you start a franchise here in Licking, Missouri, it's going to be a whole heck of a lot cheaper than if you do it in Berkeley, California, because the cost of living out here is a whole lot cheaper. So look at that range, work with the franchisor that you're talking to. We'll do that together if you want to work with me. But if you're just strictly working with a franchisor, find out in your particular area, where are you at in that range, and talk to other franchisees as well who are in similar demographics. I always tell everybody, always talk with as many franchisees as possible. Ask them if there's any surprises. One of them, did any costs come up that weren't put out in the franchise disclosure documents under the total investment? But you ask specifically, should they have like 10% or 20% more? Now that's going to depend. So if you do it yourself, you got the total investment adequate. If you're going to do something semi-passive or semi-absentee manager run type business, then you want a whole lot more than that, because in that total investment, so it's not going to include if you want to do it semi-passive. So you need tack on another $50,000, $100,000 onto it for your manager to run it. Now, the franchisors also are going to have in there your required net worth. So required net worth is going to show to make certain that you don't run out of money, because they don't want you running out of money. You'll see that also in the franchise disclosure document. If some people closed up, started the franchise and closed it up, that'll be listed in the franchise disclosure document. They have too many people closing up, it doesn't look good. Not a lot of people want it. So you want to have your living expenses. If you're going to do it yourself and you're quitting your job, and you're the sole bread earner, then you want your total investment for the franchise and living expenses for however long it takes to build that franchise up. That's going to vary by franchise itself. So when we're going to get looking at a franchise, I tell everybody to put together a little pro forma, and that is basically, talking with other franchisees, how long did it take you to get up to 10 clients? How much was each one of those clients worth? When did the money start coming in? And then what are your total fixed costs, your variable costs? So you can get a good graph of when you're going to start bringing money in. You just have to make certain that you're covered with your living expenses to the point where you start bringing money in, and now everything's peaches and cream.
And so how quickly can people expect to start bringing money in, since it's sort of like you said, a business in a box, right? And opposed to someone like me, I'm starting from scratch. So it takes several years, right? Before I can start to see money, a profit, whatnot. So typically with a franchise, what does that runway look like?
If you're looking at a service industry franchise where you're looking at a total investment of around $150,000 or so, those get up and running very quickly. So basically, some of them you can work from home where you go out and talk with your clients, or you have a small office on there. So 150, 200,000, depending on if you need some equipment. You can be up and running with those right away. All you have to do is once you sign the agreement, you go through training, get the proper licenses, 2-3 months down the road, your business is operating, you can start bringing in money. Now, as far as bringing in lots of money, to overcome all those, it'll probably take a good year or two in the service industry, depending on how much effort you put into it. With a brick and mortar type franchise, it's going to be a little while longer because now you've got to find a site to put it in, A+ real estate site. You've got to do the build out on that. Between all those, that might be 6 or 9 months from when you sign the agreement to when you get that built out. And then you've got a lot more fixed costs. So now you may be looking at 3-4 years down the line before you start bringing in some good money where everything is paid off. You've hit the threshold of break even, and now you're pulling in some more money. So service industries, 1 or 2 years easily. Some of them even quicker than that, depending on which one you get into. Brick and mortar, yeah, you're looking at 3-4 years down the line, and really depending on the size of the franchise and what it is that you actually have to build out.
But definitely faster than building from scratch. That's what it sounds like.
The whole idea, Alice, is to you want that. So when you're looking at that, so do a comparison. Do I do it from scratch like Alice did, or do I go with the franchise? So what do I got to do if I'm going to do it from scratch? How long is it going to take me? When you're looking at that franchise, you should be able to calculate that franchise getting you to where you want to be 2 to 3 years quicker than if you were to do it yourself, or more, depending on the case.
Awesome. Well, Greg, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing all the negotiation tips that you have been. And if anybody is interested in opening up a franchise or even just doing a discovery call with you, how can they best reach you?
Just simply go out to my website, franchisemaven.com. That's franchise, M-A-V as in Victor, E-N.com.
Wonderful. And for my audience, if you want to learn more about Greg, just check out his show notes and definitely visit his website. Thank you, Greg, again for being with us today on the show.
I appreciate you having me, Alice. It's been an honor. Thank you.
And thank you, everyone else, for listening in to another episode of Negotiation with Alice.